but I'm going to take the fantastic opportunity to introduce our panel for this day, an all-encompassing day into whichever time zone you're in. And I'm going to ask each one of my panelists to introduce themselves very quickly, and then to answer this big, hairy, open-ended question as we kick off. What happens when we do nothing, right? So if we continue to be in the status quo, as we have a world that is not necessarily embracing diversity and inclusion, we've got a world that is kind of, embracing hyperpolarization, what happens, right? What does this world look like, right? So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to ask Ashley to just give her an introduction on who she is, answer the big, hairy question, and then I'll call on each panelist in turn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashlea Elliott. I am calling in today from Seattle. It is still gray. We're waiting for sunshine to make its way through. And I am a member of the LGBTQIA community, and I also am a member of the disability community. And so those are two things that are really important for me to say, because they're both invisible aspects of my identity and really important to how I think about this conversation. And I train leaders all around the world on how to build inclusive organizations, how to architect for inclusion. And that's related to both gender equality as well as global public health and peace. And I run a global peace coalition with 25 million members in 168 countries, and train people all around the world how to advance the SDGs and peace. And what would happen if we did nothing? Well, this is my favorite question. We are currently in a super shock. And so in the peace world, a super shock that is both an economic crisis, a health crisis. We also have geopolitical crises happening as governments are either collapsing or restructuring around the world, having a lot of problems with the legitimacy of elections. And we're also having a series of natural disaster crises around the world. And so that super shock is happening in a moment where we have a rapidly deteriorating acceptance of the human rights of others, rapidly deteriorating trust, as well as social progress. And this kind of animosity that's really, really increasing is exceptionally dangerous right now, as we have the largest number of people who are in refugee camps, who are stateless, who've been displaced by natural disaster or political upheaval, and the grievances that people have for that large number of people who are mobile, as well as the friction that is existing in, as you mentioned, this hyperpolarized world, and how people are trying to navigate being in really multicultural societies. So if we do nothing, we will collapse.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashley. And I love this whole idea of super shocks. I hadn't heard from, but I think it's absolutely, incredible to just define it in that way. But really, is diversity, I mean, is that it? Is that a simple response? Like, be more diverse, you won't have a super shock? Is it as that clear cut?
No, if you don't architect for inclusion and rapidly and intentionally, we will continue to see a deterioration. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the SDGs. And getting other folks to understand how to align what they're doing with this framework that already exists in order to push us against that super shock in a multidimensional, multi-level systems way. And also to make sure that what people are doing is sustainable as we have a rapidly evolving world. How do you make sure, how do you create some sort of sustainable inclusion framework if everything is changing so rapidly, and knowing how to do that and how to adapt as things change? Those are the elements that I help people with, and that's how to create the fix.
It's fantastic. So we've got architect, building on the kind of the engineering thing, but like, how do we architect for inclusion? How do we engineer for inclusion, right? I'm going to just, because it's an IFES event, right? We've got to kind of bring in the engineering piece there, but I love it.